I want to start today's episode with a question, and I want you to actually think about it before we move on. How many AI tools are you currently using in your design business? Now, of those tools, how many of them have you actually read the terms and conditions or terms and services for? Okay. If the answer is zero, no shade, I need you to stay with me today because this episode is for you. And if the answer is some of them, I think you're lying. Who's reading the terms and conditions? I still need you to stay because the ones that you skipped might be the ones that are the most important. And there are so many things we may not have factored in. Today, we're talking about data security in the interior design industry. And I know that does not sound glamorous. It's not an exciting topic, not one I've covered before, but recently I went to a marketing seminar and I had to map out like 10 hills I will die on. And at least two of them, what came through really strongly was that my voice and opinion in the AI industry or in the interior design industry and AI implementation, I really have some strong feelings around cybersecurity and data security. And I think it's a conversation we're not having. So yes, it's not an exciting topic, but it is one that I want to make a case for. It might be the most important one because AI, like in this space specifically, as I said, and I'm part of this education space, I'm naming myself in this, it's almost completely silent on the question of what happened to the data that flows through these tools. It's also very silent of like, what are the threats? What might happen to your business? We've been so focused on how to use AI and what functionality exists that so many businesses are not stopping to think at what cost, to whom, and like, have I signed away specific permissions? We're not getting release forms from our clients. So do you even have permission to share the sorts of things that we are sharing on the daily with AI tools? So let's have the conversation. Nobody else is having it. And I really think it's a super important one for each and every single creative in this industry. I want to start by making a case that interior designers hold some of the most sensitive personal data of anyone in a professional context. I know it sounds dramatic, right? I don't think most designers think about themselves in that way. I think we think of ourselves as, creative, problem solvers, someone who makes homes beautiful. And yes, obviously as business owners, and we've got particular processes to do that. But you are also someone who holds enormous amounts of private information about your clients. Even some transcripts, we're just uploading them willy-nilly. But sometimes like in particular consultations, I've had married couples have pretty big fights and stuff. Like I take that seriously. I don't know that they were signing up for that bickering tanty to be uploaded into the stratosphere of internet data. And I always worry about that idea that, what happens if they're using AI in 5 years' time and they're talking about, their home address, their name, and then they're like, oh, are you the same Jenny who couldn't make any decision, was like maybe you've said something negative to AI about Jenny and her Tales of Ezra backsplash and what you think, and you've been workshopping something with an AI tool. Imagine if that came back to her way down the line. Like, I know that's a bit foil hat-ish of me, but that's kind of what this episode is. Like, let's actually unpack some of the possibility. I'm not saying that everything you say to AI about your clients is searchable or is going to pop back up, but I'm also not saying that. I don't know that. And every time we share data, there's real world consequences if it ends up in the wrong place. So let me be really specific about that. You know your client's home address, their full residential address, often including like the dates that they're renovating, knowing that they're not on site or not at the property, when the property is empty, when tradespeople have access, that we just know so much about that. You have, in many cases, the security system details for the property, alarm codes, key safes, keypad entries for the garage, like all kinds of things, right, that might be inside that transcript. You know renovation budget, which tells you and anyone that gets hold of it sort of their financial position, their risk tolerance. Sometimes their overall net worth is discussed. You know their insurance situation, mortgage status, whether they're owner-occupiers or investors. You might have detailed notes about their family, like who lives in the house, because we ask questions like, what are the kids' needs, what their lifestyle looks like, what they care about, what they're afraid of. It's quite personal, right? We have their phone number, their email, their partner's contact details. And in the course of a really long project, you've probably had conversations that are recorded, transcribed, summarized by AI tools that cover all of those personal details. Now, how many of those conversations have been processed by an AI tool? How many times have you pasted a client brief into ChatGPT, uploaded a site visit transcript into AI, into an AI summarizer, into like AI is in all of your tools now. So if you're like, well, look, I don't really upload my transcripts or anything like that, there's probably even just taking the transcript probably has an element of AI in it. And now I know some of you are thinking, don't you have a whole proposal generation system that teaches you to upload the transcript and what to do? Yes, I do. And I also understand that there are risks at doing that. I have taken liberties to toggle off specific permissions so that I know when I'm sharing my transcript, I'm not uploading it into the mainframe or teaching the tool to train future people, all sorts of things. So I guess my warning at this point of this podcast is, do you know your customization settings, your permission settings? Have you toggled them on and off based on your comfort levels or not, right? So yes, I do upload a site visit transcript into an AI summarizer, and I do draft a proposal in the platform that auto saves everything after I type. And I'm not asking you if you're doing the same to make you feel bad. I'm actually asking because most designers that I'm chatting to aren't really thinking about this stuff. They haven't kind of paused to check their permissions or think about the sensitivity of the nature of the information that they share. It's not like the tools have made it easy for you to pause and consider these things, because the tools are designed to be frictionless. They make the yes button really easy. They're actually like, they might just have a little terms and conditions. I actually think that friction is a useful business tool. I think you should play devil's advocate. I think you should always think about what you're doing in a critical sense. And that is what will save humanity, right? All of our critical thinking. So we're going to add some friction today. And I'm going to challenge you to go a little bit deeper in second guessing and I guess pausing before we just give everything away. So understanding what the tools will actually do with it. And this is a bit of a technical section, but I'm going to keep it palatable so that any interior designer listening is like, okay, I get it, right? So let's talk about what's actually happening on the other side of the screen when you paste something into an AI tool. First, the thing that most people don't know is that there's no single answer. It depends entirely on which tool you're using, which tier you're on, paid, free, pro, business, whatever, and what the terms of service say, because there's different terms of service for each of those layers and levels and platforms, which is exactly why reading them matters. And I know you're thinking like, what a boring piece of reading matter. Like, I don't want to sit down and read the terms and conditions to literally anything, but you actually have AI tools that you could upload the terms and conditions and reverse engineer and ask it to give you the too long didn't read, look for anything you should be concerned about. Like, you can workshop with another AI tool. This is the terms and conditions of Claude, for example, and you can go to ChatGPT and say, I need you to pull out all the risks here. This is the kind of business I run. This is what I'm actively looking for. Maybe get some support that way if you don't know what you're reading. I'll give you a few tips on what's generally true across most of the platforms at the moment. So free tiers are the highest risk when you're using a free version of any tool, any software, but specifically AI tools. I'm talking about those major ones, not little like obscure startups, but more like your ChatGPT, Claude, etc. The data you input is almost always retained, sometimes for a period of time, sometimes indefinitely. And in some cases, it's used to train future versions of the model. And that is true of every person that signed up to ChatGPT in 2023. You probably have the permissions toggled on that says, use my data to train the model or train future iterations of the model. So effectively, as a designer, every time I upload something or I'm discussing my ideas for a project, I am actively giving permission for OpenAI to take my creative ideas and spit them out somewhere else in the world as it's been trained that is the way that an interior designer thinks. So please pause the podcast right now if you do not already have that toggled off. Go to your ChatGPT, go down to your initials in the bottom left-hand corner, and there's like settings, permissions, etc. I think there's one that's even like data. When you click into that, I'm doing this, you can see me on the YouTube channel. I don't have a computer in front of me, so I'm kind of running through it via memory. So you might have to even Google how to do this because I might be wrong, but I think it's in your settings data permission. And then just it's toggled on to train the model for everyone. Toggle it off, please do that. And then come back and meet me here. Pause the YouTube if you're watching it and go do that. And then just pop back and we'll pick up where we left off. If you have training future versions of the model toggled on, it means that the client brief that you pasted last Tuesday could, in theory, have informed the AI's response to someone else's query in the world. It's not in a direct, like, here is your client's address kind of way. It doesn't work like that, but it's sort of in an aggregated way that means your private client information has become part of a commercial machine that you never really agreed to contribute to. So, there is such a thing as commercially sensitive information, and the information your client gave you, that kind of is, right? I don't feel like we're getting release forms signed when we're using AI in the process. In fact, I know because I coach so many interior designers and I walk through their end-to-end processes, and they're strong on onboarding, they're strong on offboarding and buying the gift, but it gets really messy in between when it comes to contractual obligations, getting release forms for even using content across social media, photography. There's a huge gap in what I'm seeing happening out there, and this would be one big element of that, is that we don't have release forms for using AI inside of the internal processes. And you may not need them. This podcast is about posing the questions you might not have thought of so that you can go off and make your own decisions in an educated and comfortable way, whatever you're comfortable with. If you continue to say, thanks for the boring data chit chat on a Thursday, but I'm going to go do whatever I was going to do anyway, or I'm not going to change anything. I'm not reading any terms of services. I'm not changing my behavior. That's on you, and that's so fine. This is just a podcast to start to ask some questions that you may not be thinking about yet. That's everything that's happening, almost guaranteed happening in the free tier. Inside of our paid tiers, they're generally a little step up better. The enterprise tiers are generally the best, but most major platforms offer business or enterprise versions that include data processing agreements, which means that they contractually commit to not training on your data, to storing it securely, and to deleting it whenever you ask. So this is, people say, why would you pay more? From a business sensibility, you might have reasons to want to go to that enterprise level and protect that data. So if we're using AI in a client-facing context, and most of us are, or we're about to, an enterprise tier is not a luxury. It's sort of a professional obligation, and I'll let you make your own decision. But I think that you need to be paying at some level if you're going to continue to use this. Everyone I'm speaking to is asking an enormous amount of AI right now, the functionality that it has, the types of ways that you want to implement it into your business to support you. And still these same people are saying, I don't want to pay $30 a month for another subscription. Okay, but that $30 a month, for example, with Claude, you could code 5 different applications that could replace other subscriptions that you pay for and still sit within that $30 button. That's for another day. I'm just saying, really, this is not the place to be scrappy and resourceful. You need to draw a line in the sand sometime with business and go, okay, we just need to take this as a business expense. It's tax deductible and it's daily use. It's a software that you're using daily, all day, every day. It supports you in a capacity that you cannot get anyone abroad, any VA, any staff help, etc. for $30 a month. So I'm going to push back on that because I'm starting to hear that, and it makes me a little bit cranky because I'm like, okay, well, you're in or you're out. But if you're just playing around with the free one, you get what you pay for. We know that with all things. So don't be afraid to spend $30 a month. Your business can afford it, specifically when it comes to what the return on that investment is. Now, I do not have affiliate links. I do not work for Anthropic. I do not work for OpenAI. I do not work for DeepSeek, Grok, Gemini, like Google, none of them. I only wish I was on their payroll for a start, but I'm just not. And so the advice that I give you is just what I see working in an AI implementation into interior design business context only. Let's talk about AI agents because this is where I get the most concerned. An AI agent is different from a chatbot, different from a GPT. Those sorts of things respond to your questions and they have rules written in the background that help them come to a conclusion and answer using whoever's trained them IP and frameworks to help you move forward around those questions. But an AI agent takes actions on your behalf. So it connects to your calendar, it connects to your email, it can book things for you with your credit card, it connects to your inbox and sends things, it connects to your browser, it could connect to your accounting software and it moves things around, it can take actions. It is almost a staff being that you train and give permission. You can connect it with your credit card and it can buy things. 18 months ago, I shared this technology and I talked about agentic AI and AI agents and why I thought Australia would be a little cautious. And I thought as a market, Australia would actually adopt a bit slower. And boy, was I wrong, because the second people just saw what could be done, and there's a lot of pain point marketing happening at the moment. I am seeing so many businesses be like, I go to bed at night and my computer works all night and does all of these things. And I'm feeling a little short of breath and panicked for you, because if you've seen this and you want to implement this into your business, it's like giving your credit card to an employee that you hired off the street, that you did not put on probation, you know nothing about, are their intentions good or bad, giving them your credit card, leaving them alone for 12 hours and waking up the next day and expecting your business account not to be, 6 figures in the negative. I'm just, please take some time to consider the ramifications. Okay. So you can set up agentic AI to run that way without reviewing each step. And this is the danger zone that I'm talking about. So the pitch that you will see is that this saves you so much time. And of course it can. That's incredible. I'm not dismissing the functionality here, but I want you to think about what you're actually doing when you grant a level of permission like that to a relatively untested technology. You are handing unsupervised access to your business infrastructure to a system that you've known less time than you've known your most recent client. You would just not do that with a person, like a human. You would not. You would not skip an interview, hand them your Xero login, your email passwords, your client files, your everything, your credit card on day one. Can you imagine what this system could email a client? And I have seen, this is not a fear-mongering thing, I've seen actual nightmare situations where people have it wiped my whole Google Drive, or it did all of these things. You're not awake and you're not overseeing it. You've given it this wild permission. It's insane to me. I feel like inside of a business that I've spent 8 years creating, access is trust and trust is earned. I'm not just going to be yeah, whatever. And I think we need to scrutinize the AI agents exactly the same as we would a person, because if a person made a mistake like that, you'd sue them, you'd find out, what happened. But if an agent's operating overnight and you've already given full permission and it makes a mistake or it's compromised or, you won't know until after the damage is done. And this is the thing that I think deserves to be said really plainly. A lot of us are using the same password across multiple platforms. I know we're not supposed to, but oh my God, all the passwords, I just don't have time. We all know that we should not do that. But lots of us are, let's be realistic. And when you connect an AI tool to one of those platforms and you give it full access, full permissions, you're potentially giving it a key that opens up more than one door. You're allowing it to think about testing that same combination theoretically across banking. I don't know. We just don't know. This is uncharted seas. And I just think a simple yes, because the functionality is there, is such a concern. Now, I'm going to get into what Australian law is actually saying about this, which is, I'm not a lawyer. I can't give legal advice, but this stuff is really important and designers need to know it exists. I want to spend a few minutes on the legal side of this, and I'll say it up front. I'm not a lawyer, and nothing I say here is legal advice, but I am a business owner in Australia, and I think most designers really underestimate what our privacy obligations actually are. Now, before I get into anything else around AI, the law is lagging. We know that politicians, we're not preparing for what's coming. The way we will be using AI in 2027, they have not factored in any of this. So there's a real concern in that lag. We're not really protected. What happens if your cyber security is breached? Where do we sit with that? And our obligations are actually enacted already in the Privacy Act of 1988, which covers how Australian businesses collect, store, use, disclose personal information. And if we're small business operators, which most of us are, and independent design studios, we kind of think like, oh, the Privacy Act doesn't really apply. There's a small business exemption that applies to businesses with under $3 million in annual turnover. But that exemption has actual exceptions. And even if the technology is in your studio, it doesn't mean your clients don't have expectations. And it doesn't mean a breach wouldn't damage your business, your reputation, like your relationships. Like, I don't know, your insurance levels. Like, I'm a company now, not a sole trader. That makes me feel a little bit of relief that my house won't get taken. But your clients have an expectation that this stuff isn't shared online. And I think we need to think about that practically. If a client's home address was compromised because it passed through an AI tool that we were using, or something happened as a result, and we know that the Privacy Act covers so many things, but sometimes you don't know the client's history. Has there been a DV situation? Is there perhaps a custody situation with their children, and we're just uploading willy-nilly where they live and the kids' names and schools? And yes, I feel like this is like a scaremongering episode, but it's not supposed to be. It's supposed to be about activating an overall conversation and a thought process that means that we don't just blindly say yes to everything. How would you feel about having never read the terms of service of that tool and actually actively, accidentally putting your client at risk? Like, how would the client feel about you as a service provider? I really, again, am not trying to catastrophize. I'm just trying to make the abstract idea a little bit more concrete inside of your mind, because designers who are building privacy-aware workflows now, who are asking all the right questions, choosing the right tools, handling data with like the same care that we handle the concept development, those designers will be building really strong infrastructure to protect their clients as well as we go through. And the industry runs on relationships. It's like people's biggest investments. They invite you into their home. It's a commercial asset to protect them and to be able to reassure your client that you are doing some things in the back end to protect that. You don't see doctors using AI for the transcripts and stuff without they get you to agree with a checkbox or sign the release, that they're heavy on security. They're using particular tools that have loop wireframes. They're not just using like free ChatGPT. It might feel like, why are we even talking about this now? But it will matter so much in 2 years' time. And I'm all about preparing your businesses for what's coming. In 2 years' time, clients will be asking you directly, how do you intend to use my personal information? Like my floor plan, blah, blah, blah. Like, I think that's just going to be stock standard, or we're at least going to have it contractually included as to what the clients can expect from us. I touched on this briefly, but this section of the podcast is for designers who thought about the data, but haven't really thought about what it means to train AI tools with your creative way of deciding things and what you do. It's a different concern, but it definitely warrants a conversation at the end of this podcast, because it's an entirely different dimension to what's at risk in terms of data security, cybersecurity. So I want to cover it. It's slightly different from the client data conversation, but it is kind of all related, right? So it's what happens when you use AI tools to generate, refine, assist with our creative work, and those tools train on what we produce. So our design concepts, really important to this industry, our material selections, our spatial reasoning, my aesthetic decisions, the particular way that I curate and pull things together that makes my work recognizable and different to your work. If that's being fed into an AI system that's learning from it, who owns the IP? Who owns the rights to that design? It's kind of a live legal question, because just as I said, the law hasn't caught up yet. So the intellectual property frameworks around AI-generated and AI-assisted creative work is still being worked out in courts and legislation. They have no idea. I don't have a clean answer for you, but I do kind of have a position that I'm coming at it from. Your creative voice is your competitive advantage. It is what makes you different to the AI tools. It's why your clients choose you over the designer down the road, or choose you over a renovation platform, or someone who delivers cheap and faster but doesn't have your eye or aesthetic. So if you're training the tools on your creative edge without being compensated, we're extracting all the value from you, all the humanity, whether that's legal or not currently. It's just worth knowing it's actually happening. And there are tools that don't do this. There are configurations. There are tools on the market that explicitly exclude your inputs from training data. There are platforms built for creative professionals with IP protection, like built in. The question is just whether you've made a deliberate choice or whether you've just clicked yes to everything and signed up and hoped for the best, or weren't even aware that this was happening. Some of you will be listening to this and saying, holy Batman, I did not know that. And I've been, uploading floor plans and 3D renders and all these things. Those are your designs. That is what makes you so incredibly creative and so different from everything that can just be achieved using any AI tool. Our humanity and creativity is worth so much more than just becoming a default setting and like spitting out over and over because you've trained it to think and design exactly as you do. So what are we actually going to do with all of this information? Firstly, breathe. Do not panic. Thank you for watching or listening this far on a dry topic like data security or cybersecurity. I know that you're picking up what I'm putting down by now, and you know that it's really just about saying, hey, have you thought about this stuff? Are you preparing for this stuff? I spent the first half of this episode making you feel really worried about what's possible, but I also want to spend the second half making you capable and prepared and armed. I am not telling you to stop using AI. Duh, I love it. I use it every day. I use it in my studio, in my coaching practice. It's changed the way I work in so many ways. It's generally given me freedom to be with my kids, build a sustainable business, to be able to put ethical and human-led AI into other businesses in the design industry is really important work, I think. Asking these questions, highlighting what needs to be known before we just go ahead. And I'm telling you this to build the literacy and the language around AI so that you can make deliberate choices rather than just signing up, yes to the permission and getting yourself in a world of trouble. So here's what we're actually going to do. Not all client data carries the same risk. It's almost triage it and and understand what are we actually working with. High sensitive data like home addresses, security codes, access information, renovation budgets, financial details, insurance information, family. You can extract all of that, redact it out of transcripts. This data should not go into free tier AI tools, full stop, ever. Medium sensitivity data, project briefs, material preferences, aesthetic direction, mood board descriptions. This could go into well-configured tools on paid tiers very easily. But you need to know which tools these are and what their data policies say and make sure you've toggled off the right things. And then low sensitivity data, general industry questions, captions, social media, draft copy, your own marketing, research queries, ideas you're developing, procurement, sourcing, just looking on websites. The free tools are generally fine for this. As you can hear, you can't really hack into anything from me looking at the Beacon Lighting website, right? So once you've made that distinction, you're already more educated than most in terms of the decisions that you make about what you share become more and more simple, right? The second step would be to ask these 3 questions before connecting anything. So I use these 3 questions for every tool I consider connecting to client-facing parts of my business, even commercially sensitive parts, really. Question 1, where does my data go and does it stay there? Is there a clear data retention policy? Is this a free tier that trains on imports? Can I find the privacy policy that actually answers this question, or is it buried in language designed to obscure it? Question 2, what access am I actually granting, and can I revoke it instantly? Once I connect something, can I unconnect it? Not what the tool says it needs, but what did I actually click yes to? If I needed to disconnect this tool urgently or right now, or I changed my mind, can I do it? Do I know where every open door is and how this tool actually performs with my data? And question 3, if this tool was compromised tomorrow, what's the blast radius? What could it touch? What could it get access to? What would I have to tell my clients? If the question makes my stomach drop, then the access is too broad. These are simple questions, but they're questions that are being completely overlooked. And that's what's making me nervous right now. And that's why this podcast episode was so important to me. I feel like so many of us are not asking these questions because the onboarding process to connect to an AI tool is designed to move us past them really quickly and just get that easy yes and click the button. But I want you to slow down on purpose. The next thing I want you to do is a 5-minute audit of what you've already connected to, right? So this one's a bit uncomfortable, but it is worth it. We can't look backwards, we can only look forwards, but in a more educated way. So you can go into the settings of your major AI tools, ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, whatever you're using, and look at what you've connected. What integrations are active, what permissions are already granted, what data is being retained. Most platforms have a privacy dashboard or a connected apps section. Find it, read it, use the tool to unpack it. Look, you might find nothing concerning. You might find nothing you want to change. You might find everything you want to change. But you'll be making educated decisions. Either way, you'll know, and knowing is better than not knowing. Like, we cannot emu this head in the sand, just connect, and go. Hopefully they don't take anything like sensitive or precious to me. If you're using AI for anything that involves client data, I think you kind of have a responsibility to spend an hour of your day really thinking about this and thinking about your comfort levels. I am comfortable sharing, building proposals, sharing transcripts, briefs, site visit notes. I'm on a paid tier. I have particular security set up, permissions set up, projects set up. I use things in a data aware way. I am performing in a way that generally the risk is relatively small based on what I've built and what I know I'm doing. And like having business versions of the tools or having the paid versions helps. You've got to know how your data is being handled. It's a professional approach to what is a unspoken risk, right? People are just not talking about this. We have professional indemnity insurance and we have signed service agreements to protect our clients. And this is just the digital version of taking your professional obligations seriously and really thinking about overarchingly, how am I going to show up and use these AI tools to support me whilst protecting my client and protecting my business. I spent 8 years building this business. I do not want it to be at risk. I keep coming back whenever I'm thinking about this topic. I keep coming back to how the interior design industry is built entirely on trust, and our clients are letting us into their homes and their hearts before the work starts. And they tell us so much about, the marriage, the finances, the fears, things they honestly wouldn't tell everybody and every service provider. And we have it all there. And we're sort of, trust is not a small thing. It's the foundation of all of the projects. It's why things go so well when we work so well back and forth with our clients. And it's how we get all those referrals and repeat clients. Right now, that trust is flowing 3 ways, not 2 ways. So not just between you and your client, there is an AI tool in between. And we're not maybe reading the fine print on that and what's happening. That's not to say trust is broken or you're doing the wrong thing. It's just saying it deserves more attention and care than just click yes to every permission, especially as we go forward. And the marketing right now is trying to convince you that all of this amazing stuff exists. I shared some stuff on my stories this week that's been really popular around. I've built a content repurposing app through Claude. I built a PR scout that goes out and connects me with podcasts, keynote speaking gigs, collaboration, brand partnerships. We're drafting, blah, blah, blah. I want to be very clear in case it didn't come across in my stories when I shared this. I have built them using code to live locally on my hard drive on my computer. It's not URL based. It's not open source to the internet. It is a private app that sits on my computer. Okay. Not going to get into all the how-tos of that. It's not as easy as the startup founders on TikTok will have you know. I was pulling my hair out yesterday. I hit dead ends. I hit cost problems with APIs. Like, there's stuff that's going on, right? But then I was able to work it out to what I needed it to be for my studio. But this is it. We have to make deliberate choices about what tools are going to handle what data in what manner. What upgrades are we going to pay for? What are we just going to say is too sensitive to share with AI? And we want to be able to look our client in the eye and say, I've really thought about how I handle your information. And designers who are building something that has that consideration and infrastructure will become more aware of the issues and off the front foot. You're not reactive when someone says, hey, you're not using this with AI, are you? You're actually like, we have a policy and this is the policy. So it's worth thinking about for sure. We want to be the designer who's ahead of these sorts of things. We know they're coming. I will put those 3 questions in the show notes so that you can save them, that you can think about them. If you want to share this episode with a designer that you know who's really AI curious at the moment, or you think that this might be really a timely reminder, please do that. This one is really worth passing on. I would really love everyone to be educated with the questions and the ability to play devil's advocate in their own business. And remember that commercially sensitive information, we don't want to connect it to absolutely everything that you've built, and specifically password protected websites and so on. Like, yes, I could send Claude AI agents right now to log into my GlobeWest account, pick things, order things, connect to my credit cards. But what if I woke up and it's furnished an entire house and I'm responsible for paying that GlobeWest net invoice and I was asleep? Maybe I was letting it do some early procuring and it thought I wanted it to order all of the options. We're not there yet. We're just not. Okay, I hope that's been helpful. Please let me know if you're watching this on YouTube, what you thought of this episode. If you're listening to this on Apple or Spotify or where you listen to podcasts, there is a button to let me know what you think, if this was helpful. If I've put you to sleep, maybe you're welcome. If you're at 3:11 in the morning, like a lot of designers, and you're freaking out about bar stools, and this is the data security chat that you needed to get back to sleep, then you are welcome. Good night, and I will see you next Thursday. Bye for now.